This is another News for You live stream brought to you by Freedom Media WA. Recently, Federal Labor MP
And we've
Anne
just
Alley,
come to ask you a couple of questions.
the Minister for Early Childhood Education and the Minister for Youth, Anne Alley hosted a meet and greet in a local park within her electorate seat of Cowan, located in the northern suburbs of Western Australia. Anne Alley took to social media, inviting the community to come and join her, engaging in conversations. As she stated on her taxpayer-funded flyers, she wanted to listen and ask people comments and listen to people's concerns. Despite the rainy weather, our team saw the opportunity to approach Minister for Early Childhood Education, Anne Alley, and seek her perspective on the growing prevalence of drag queen storytime, events that are targeting children aged between 2 to 8 years of age, not just here in Perth, Western Australia, but across the country. It needs to be said, there has been limited discussion on this matter in mainstream media, as there is a distinct lack of questioning about the agenda behind normalising adult men dressing as women and selectively reading storybooks to young children. As the Minister for Early Childhood Education, Anne Alley, she holds a significant responsibility in this area, and one would expect her to be well informed and prepared to address straightforward questions about drag queen storytime. However, watch now to see the interaction unfold, and you be the judge on how Anne Alley is carrying out her ministerial portfolio responsibilities on such a controversial topic. Hello, good morning, Anne. It's Lindsay from Freedom Media.
Yes, Lindsay, I know who you are.
And we've just come to ask you a couple of questions, if we may.
Quite simply, Mr Speaker, because it's the right thing to do. Because it's the right thing to do. Because this government knows that the first 5 years of a child's life set the foundation for their future.
Do you think it's the right thing to introduce drag queen storytime into the curriculum for young children?
Do you think that the government introduced it? Is that what you're saying?
I'm asking.
Have you done your homework? Have you done your homework? Are you going to ask me questions where you haven't done your homework like usual, using misinformation and disinformation?
Do you think that it's the right thing to
Have you done your
drag queen
homework? Have you
storytime?
done your homework, or are you spreading misinformation and disinformation again?
I'm asking you the question. Do you think so, Anne? Do you think that it's the right thing to do to introduce?
They're not introducing
Is
it
that a
into the
world-class
curriculum.
standard?
Here you go. So that your viewers all know, they're not introducing it into the curriculum. This is something that is done at libraries, at the choice of libraries. You're asking me a question and you're giving me the microphone. I'm going to use
You
it.
don't need to aggressively
So
grab the
I'm not
microphone.
aggressively grabbing it. You've come here and
People can
aggressively
hear
asked me
your
questions.
audio.
Now I'm going to address two key points here. Firstly, I clarified my attendance at the get-go to Anne Alley at her public meeting in the park, and that was to ask her a few questions. As you've just seen from the footage, it clearly shows my intention and my initial approach, which Anne Alley labelled as aggressive. However, it is important to note that Anne Alley's accusation came only after she attempted to forcefully take the microphone from my hand without any need for such behaviour. This was evident by her body language and also her staffer, who both were aware of the impropriety of her actions. Yet she falsely claimed, "You've come here to aggressively ask me a question," and instructed her staffer to immediately call the Australian Federal Police, alleging that people were violent towards her. This deliberate misrepresentation created a false belief and a misleading perception that Anne Alley was being subjected to violence, which, notwithstanding, if it was done by a member of the public, could have led to police consequences in a clear abuse of her parliamentary position as an elected parliamentary person in Parliament. It should be remembered a healthy democracy relies on active citizen participation and questioning by the mainstream media and on issues like this that do have high public interest. simply because Anne Alley doesn't like a question, despite it being relevant to her ministerial portfolio, is no reason to weaponise police. You, the voting public, have a right to know her position on this issue. To use police as a political gain, as she did in this instance, for the purpose of intimidation, leads to a decline in the participation rates of democracy, a loss in transparency and accountability in policy and agenda implementation, and the freedoms of citizens and the rights of those citizens by those that are elected to be served for the people. And the second point that I'll seek to make here is that, did you notice that Anne Alley used straight from the left's ready reckoner when they were challenged with an idea, that is the left, that the hard left faction can't say you're wrong? The left are reverting more and more to use this new and very much overused word salad deflective phrase, and that is
disinformation and misinformation.
Distractions and misinformation.
Stop spreading misinformation and disinformation.
There is enormous amounts of misinformation.
Misinformation.
All of the misinformation.
And misinformation and disinformation.
How are we spreading?
When you watch enough press conferences, it's clear that the hard left faction are all reading in unison from the same page, and it becomes Anne Alley's go-to response, aside from her resistance of doing homework. Let's have a look at the rest of the interview.
So, the government is not introducing it. Stop spreading misinformation and disinformation to whoever it is that is listening to you. It is something that local councils and libraries have taken on. Don't pretend that this is something that is being put into the curriculum. Use misinformation and disinformation and fear to try and spread your political agenda.
Do you feel that it's appropriate, though, that local governments are introducing
It is
drag
not up
queen
to
stuff?
me. It is up to the local governments and the libraries who are doing it.
You must have an
and
opinion,
it's up to
though.
them.
Do you feel that it's appropriate
And
that
I
they
have never
introduce that?
seen a drag queen, I don't know, do what you're doing, for example, go out and spread hate and do what you're doing and misinformation and disinformation.
How are we spreading hate?
If it doesn't
Anne
affect
Alley?
me...
How is
if
this spreading hate?
How does it affect you? Let me ask you this question. Let's have a sincere conversation here. Is it taking anything away from you?
So I'm here to see.
No,
as
answer
the
my
minister, the
question.
Federal
You want a
Minister for Early
conversation?
Childhood Education.
Let us have a conversation.
What's your view on that? Do you
Is it
think it's a
taking
world-class
anything
standard
away
to
from you?
introduce drag queen story time
Get onto the
to young children?
Coming right now.
Have you... Okay, let me ask you, and your view is this question. Does it take anything away from you?
So you must have a view, though, Anne.
Does it
As the
take...
Minister
My
for
view
Early
is...
Childhood
My view
Education,
is...
talking
Are you going to
about-
ask me... Let me finish my answer?
Sure, yep.
My view is, does it take anything away from you? Whatever happened to live and let live? It makes no difference to me. People have a choice. We live in a free country where people should have choice. Why do you think and why do you want to spread that it is taking something from you?
I don't think I've said that. I've spread that it's taking anything from me. I'm asking you the question, as a Federal Minister for Early Childhood Education, do you support drag queen storytime being introduced?
It is something that libraries choose to do. This, so
What do you
first
think
bit
about
of
that?
first bit of
What do you think
disinformation.
about that?
It is being introduced, and somehow the government has control over it being introduced. First bit of disinformation and misinformation. Do your homework. You call yourself an investigative journalist, but you're
what do you
not,
think about
because
that?
you spread lies.
What do you think
First
about it,
thing,
though, Anne?
it is not being introduced.
Okay.
So the premise of your question is wrong. Second thing, if libraries choose to offer this to parents and parents choose to send their children, is it any skin off my nose? No. Do I feel offended by it? No. Do I feel like it's taking something away from me? No. Do I feel like I have any less rights as a citizen? That I am made powerless by it? No. So why do I give thought to it?
Do you feel then, would it be any skin off your nose, Anne Alley, that the drag queen Cougar Morrison that's been reading stories to 2 to 8-year-old children
Shall we leave it?
advertised on social media?
Local resident. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Ed.
Well, so much for Anne Alley wanting to have a sincere conversation. And it was not surprising to witness Annelie's departure as soon as I broached the subject of Clint Steinberg, a biological adult male drag queen performer who uses the stage name of Cougar Morrison. Steinberg, who claims to be an ambassador for this unique form of entertainment in Perth, where he dresses in drag and reads stories to children 2 to 8 years of age in ratepayer-funded public libraries. Annellie has awareness as a result of my previous interactions with her that I do my homework. Hence, my next logical follow-up question to her was whether she deemed it appropriate for somebody who shares social media posts that, regardless of whichever gender they're portraying, I still love things in my mouth. A post that carries sexualized and a suggestive tone, which does not encourage or align with young children to explore reading. Or the other social media post that Clint has gone to great lengths to hide from his timeline since becoming a public figure, as he says, for educational purposes, of reading stories to young children. That life is like a bucket of sperm and sometimes you just have to suck it up. A post that you would expect would warrant some comment from somebody who's responsible, that is Annellie, as you've seen acknowledge herself in the carefully orchestrated parliamentary question time exchange. The critical importance of education is in the first year of a child's shaping of their future. To address Annellie's claims that it is a local government initiative, she emphasised it falls under the jurisdiction of local government, thereby limiting her ability to take action. It would be a reasonable conclusion to draw from this that Annellie acknowledges local government authorities have more power and jurisdiction than her, a current parliamentary federal sitting member. But it's not the case, which I will set out in another stream, showing that Annellie engaged with a local resident who posed a question where at the end of that conversation, Annellie pledged to personally correspond with the City of Stirling, and which was the local government authority in that question. Drag Queen Storytime is not out of her hands. It's out of the hard left faction's agenda. As they've been spruiking since the Labor Albanese government came into power, that they recognise and embrace the importance of inclusiveness, diversity and acceptance within society, and in this case, the inclusiveness and acceptance of the desire of a biological adult male to dress in drag and read stories to children 2 to 8 years of age. And remember, after all, as Annellie put it herself, it's no skin off her nose. Annellie loves to address the elephant in the room, but only when it's primetime TV and when she knows the question. Even then, recent appearances make you wonder what the heck happened to the supposed political party that is meant to represent working class people.
Inflation and cost of living is not just the elephant in the room, it is an entire herd. Conversations with my friends are focusing on negotiating extra casual shifts or how we can join the gig economy just to pay the kids' school expenses or their sports fees, let alone the mortgage. So where's the hope?
Annellie.
Thanks, Jan. Alison, is it? Thank you so much for your question, Alison. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and the Treasurer certainly hasn't sugarcoated it either. Inflation is rising and interest rates are rising, and cost of living pressures on families and individuals right across Australia is really being felt. I've got to say, though, that I've spent pretty much my entire parliamentary career standing up in Parliament talking about cost of living pressures for some sections of the people that I represent in Cowan, particularly in those lower socioeconomic suburbs. So I think that those people have been feeling the cost of living pressures much more acutely now and for longer. So, yeah, I know it's tough. The other day I was at the shops and I think, you know, just observing a gentleman there who was buying bread and was counting his coins to buy the bread and how expensive the bread was. But, you know, there's no sugarcoating it, Alison. There's none.
So Anne Alley, a wannabe frontbencher for the Labor Party, her hypocrisy is clear when she rises in Parliament to answer stage questions as the stark visual contrast with her lavish clothing competes against the struggle of everyday people. And this raises questions about the disconnect between the rhetoric and the action that she and the Labor government promise when they give their speeches stating that they have empathy with the Australian people and the current high cost of living with the crisis that we're now facing. So, and here is Anne Alley in a recent parliamentary question time where she's talking about the youth of this nation struggling to pay their bills of necessity, whilst clad in an outfit which is worth more than some youths their first car, dressed in a black Gucci belt which retails for a whopping $825 and a $1,600 coat from the clothing label Essie. Watch now, let's have a look.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Youth. How will the Albanese Labor government's budget support young Australians by providing targeted cost of living relief?
Good question.
Give the call to the Minister for Youth and Early Childhood Education.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank the member for Bennelong for his question and just take a moment to acknowledge the fine work that he is doing in representing and the interest that he has in the wellbeing and welfare of young people and children in Bennelong. I think it's fair to say that all of us on this side know that young people are doing it tough. And as a result, Mr Speaker,
You know, there's no sugarcoating it.
the Albanese Labor government wants to change that.
As you've just seen in this stream, Anne Alley has two sides. The scripted version, which you get to see when softball questions are asked of her, and the other version, which is the true self, a politician who is about political gain and far from removed from representing the people who she purports to represent and those that elected her. The only way the general public will get to see Anne Alley's two versions is when you share this stream. Thank you for watching. Tell us your thoughts in the comments where the sincere conversation really begins.